Two former editors of the now defunct Stand News found guilty of sedition. A high court jury finds 6 of 7 defendants in the so-called Dragon Slayer Brigade case not guilty of charges against them. And in Beijing, President Xi Jinping meets visiting White House National Security Council advisor Jake Sullivan. Hello and welcome to TVB News. A Hong Kong court today found 2 former senior editors guilty of sedition in relation to publications by the now defunct Stand News. This is the first sedition conviction against journalists since the city's handover in 1997. Mimo Singai reports.
Zhong Pui-kun, former chief editor of the now defunct online media Stand News, arrived at the district court in Wan Chai after midday. The other defendant, Patrick Lam, a former acting chief editor, was not present at the hearing due to health reasons. After 56 days of trial, the court handed down its verdict and the pair were found guilty of sedition. Zhong, Lam, and the parent company of Stand News were accused of publishing 17 seditious articles to incite hatred towards the central and Hong Kong government between July 2020 and December 2021. The authors of the articles include exiled and wanted activists Nathan Law and Ted Ho. In judgment, Judge Kwok Wai Kin said the political atmosphere was extremely heated when the case happened, and a large number of people were not pleased with the central and local authorities. The court ruled that 11 out of the 17 articles involved had a seditious intention. Among them, 4 were written by former journalist Alan Au. The judge said the content of the 11 articles did not have any objective basis and had the intention to incite public hatred towards the central and Hong Kong authorities. Zhong Pui-kun handled 10 of the seditious articles as the chief editor of Stand News. Patrick Lam dealt with 1 article when he became the acting chief editor. The court said Lam had made supportive comments on the 2019 social movement. The court also convicted the parent company of Stand News because it hired the 2 defendants, meaning the company also helped publish the seditious articles. Zhong and Lam were granted bail. Zhong was seen leaving the courthouse afterwards. The 2 defendants will be sentenced on September 26th. Chief Superintendent Steve Lee of the National Security Department of the Police Force said freedom to publish and freedom of the press are not definite and restrictions can be imposed.
We are not actively to capture all the information from the press, but as far as you know that because the news is going to the public, we are not to impose a lot of restriction on them, but we are just looking into that. Rather, they have been disseminated, the information is seditious in nature. That's all is according to the law.
Senior counsel Ronnie Tong, who is also an executive council member, said the convictions of the 2 editors will likely affect the public's perception of press freedom, but he does not think the verdict will affect press freedom in Hong Kong.
We should understand that it has always been the law that the editor and publisher should be fully responsible for what they publish. That is the case before the handover and after the handover. The nature of these articles are arguments, commentaries, and not report or facts. I don't see as a matter of law it has anything to do with press freedom.
News 9, TVB News.
A high court jury today found 6 of the 7 members of the so-called Dragon Slayer Brigade not guilty of conspiring to place explosives under the UN anti-terrorism law. Defendant Lai Chun-pong was found guilty of an alternative charge. The Dragon Slayer Brigade was accused of plotting to detonate bombs and use firearms to murder police officers during the 2019 social unrest. Mimo Singai again.
The prosecution said the Dragon Slayer Brigade, under the leadership of defendant Ng Ji-hong, planned to place bombs on Hennessy Road in Wan Chai during a protest on December 8, 2019. The team decided to place the bombs and to attack police officers by luring them to the scene. After 3 days of deliberation, the juries ruled that Zhang Zhongfu, Zheng Meiyu, Yi Menghim, Lei Ga-tin, Lai Zhenbong, and Hu Jianwing not guilty of conspiring to place explosives under the UN anti-terrorism law. 5 people were found not guilty of the alternative charge, conspiracy to cause explosions that could endanger life and cause property damage. But Lai Jianbong was convicted. All defendants were cleared of the charge of conspiracy to murder. Li Gating was also cleared of his additional charge, processing arms and ammunition with intent to endanger life. The only female defendant, Lau Puying, was found not guilty of conspiring to provide or collect property for terrorist acts. News 9, TVB News.
This is the first time the Department of Justice used the UN anti-terrorism law for prosecution. Some defendants in the case had earlier pleaded guilty to the charges. The police said they take such cases very seriously. Chief Superintendent Steve Lee of the National Security Department of the Police Force said this is a very serious case with real guns, rifles, and explosives, which could have caused major casualties from both the police and demonstrators. He said the plot was well planned. Lee said the police take such cases very seriously and will continue to protect the safety and property of Hong Kong people. President Xi Jinping met White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing today. Sullivan ends his 3-day visit to China today, where he also met Foreign Minister Wang Yi and a top military official. Both sides are hoping to set up a summit between Xi and U.S. President Joe Biden ahead of the U.S. presidential election on November 5th. Nazvi Karim has more.
On the final day of a 3-day trip, the Great Hall of the People in Beijing was the last stop this afternoon for White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. President Xi Jinping was there to receive Sullivan, who earlier today met a top military official after holding talks with Foreign Minister Wang Yi on Tuesday and Wednesday. CCTV quoted Xi as saying, "Although the situations of the two countries and China-US relations have changed greatly, China's goal of being committed to the stable, healthy and sustainable development of China-US relations has not changed." Earlier, Sullivan met General Zhang Yuxia, one of 2 vice chairs of the Central Military Commission, a body directly headed by Xi. Zhang is one of the most important men in the military, and his meeting with Sullivan is a sign of the importance to both countries of maintaining military-to-military communications. "Your request to meet me shows the value you attach to military security and the relationship between our militaries," Zhang told Sullivan.
It is rare that we have the opportunity to have this kind of exchange, and given the state of the world and the need for us to responsibly manage the U.S.-China relationship, I think this is a very important meeting.
Beijing broke off military communications with the U.S. after then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in August 2022. Contact only resumed in November 2023 when Xi met President Joe Biden in San Francisco. A White House statement said today's meeting recognized the progress in sustained regular military-to-military communications over the past 10 months. Discussion points include stability in the Taiwan Strait and Beijing's claim in the South China Sea. At an international naval gathering earlier this year in northeast China, Zhang said China is determined to take control of Taiwan and would strike back with force if its interests came under threat. On Tuesday and Wednesday, Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Sullivan held talks during which the 2 men opened the path for a possible summit between Xi and Biden ahead of the November 5th U.S. presidential election. The U.S. and China have conflicting views on the Middle East, the Russia-Ukraine war and trade issues. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
French authorities handed preliminary charges to Telegram CEO Pavel Durov on Wednesday for allowing alleged criminal activity on his messaging app. He has also been barred from leaving the country pending further investigations. Both free speech advocates and authoritarian governments have spoken in Durov's defense since his weekend arrest. Charges against Durov include suspected complicity in running an online platform that allows illicit transactions, images of child sex abuse, drug trafficking and fraud, money laundering, and providing cryptographic services to criminals. The case has called attention to the challenges of policing illegal activity online. Durov was arrested Saturday at Le Bourget Airport outside Paris and detained for 4 days. He was freed Wednesday on €5 million bail, but cannot leave the country. Still ahead, Israel launches one of its largest military operations in the West Bank for months. China's Paris Olympics athletes in town for a 3-day visit. Welcome back. Israel has launched one of its largest military operations in the occupied West Bank for months. The Israeli military says at least 10 Hamas members were killed as troops raided Jenin and other flashpoint cities on Wednesday. 5 more were killed in a shootout today, including a well-known Palestinian commander, Mohammed Jaber. Escalations as well along the blue line between Lebanon and Israel as United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed deep concern over the hostilities. Tracy Furness reports.
Plumes of smoke could be seen on Wednesday in Jenin as Israel launched raids across the occupied West Bank. The Israeli military says its forces killed 10 Palestinian militants. 5 more were killed Thursday in a shootout with Israeli forces after the 5 had hidden inside a mosque. It was reported that a well-known commander of the Islamic Jihad group, Mohammed Jaber, was among the dead. Hundreds of Israeli troops backed by helicopters, drones and armoured personnel carriers raided the flashpoint cities of Jenin and Tulkarm, among other areas in the West Bank, the largest assault in months. Israel says it's rooting out militants to prevent attacks. Palestinians fear that the Israelis intend to broaden the war and expel them from territories they want for a future state. Meanwhile, on the Lebanese border, Israel's military say it struck 2 targets, which it claimed were used as observation posts by Hezbollah militants. This as the United Nations Security Council voted unanimously to adopt Resolution 2749 and renew the mandate of the United Nations interim force in Lebanon for another year.
Lebanon should not be a haven for terrorist organizations or a launch pad for attacks against Israel. There is no dispute that Iran, in clear violation of the arms embargo in Resolution 1701, provides Hezbollah with the majority of the rockets, missiles, and drones that are fired at Israel. And let's be clear, Israel has a right to defend itself against Hezbollah's attacks.
Meanwhile, one of the 2 hostages released by Hamas this week, Qaid Farhan al-Qadi, arrived in his tiny village of Karkur to great fanfare Wednesday. His Bedouin community clustering around him as journalists jostled for pictures. I don't wish anyone to be where I was, so I do everything, protest everything, so that people can return home, al-Qadi said. Israeli soldiers rescued the 52-year-old as they combed a network of tunnels in southern Gaza Tuesday looking for hostages. Palestinian militants are still holding 108 hostages, around a third of whom are believed to be dead. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. authorities have grounded SpaceX's workhorse Falcon 9 rocket after an accident off the Florida coast. In Wednesday's pre-dawn incident, the rocket's reusable first-stage booster toppled over in flames while landing on an ocean platform after launching Starlink internet satellites into orbit. The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, has put on hold all Falcon 9 launches and ordered an investigation. The rocket blasted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and all 21 Starlink satellites were put into orbit. But the first stage booster fell over in a fireball moments after landing on an ocean platform, the first such accident in years. There were no injuries or public damage. It was the 23rd time this particular booster had been used, a recycling record for SpaceX. 2 wild pigs were killed after being hit by vehicles on Tolo Highway this morning. A motorcyclist was injured. The motorcyclist was sent to hospital for treatment. The 2 vehicles involved in the incident were slightly damaged. Sources said it all happened at 5 a.m. when an airport bus and a motorcycle traveling on Tolo Highway crashed into the 2 boars wandering on the highway. China's athletes from the Paris Olympics arrived in Hong Kong for a 3-day visit this morning. They'll be meeting various sectors of the Hong Kong community and perform for the public. Timothy Lee reports.
Around noon today, 65 athletes from China's Olympic team touched down in Hong Kong and were greeted with a warm welcome. The first athlete to emerge from the plane was Ma Long, who won a record 6 table tennis golds across 4 Olympic tournaments. Up next were double gold medalist diver Chen Hongchan and world record holder and gold medalist freestyle swimmer Pan Zhanle. The Chinese team won 40 gold medals in Paris, marking its best performance in the history of the games held outside China. Women's tennis singles gold medalist Zheng Qinwen was notably missing from the delegation because she's competing at the US Open in New York. Gao Zhidong, director of the State General Administration of Sports and the leader of the delegation, said the athletes will conduct sporting and friendship exchanges with Hong Kong residents, especially young people, to carry forward the nation's athletic spirit. Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chen was among the welcoming party. He hailed the National Olympic delegation's 7th visit to the city, starting from the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games, saying it reflects the central government's care for Hong Kong. Some students carrying national and Hong Kong flags at the airport apron voiced their excitement about meeting their idols. This student said he wanted to give the athletes his own medal as a good memory. While this student said she couldn't sleep the whole night owing to her excitement at seeing the national delegation. During the afternoon, the athletes arrived at this hotel in Tsim Sha Tsui to meet the press and share their expectations for the visit.
As you can see behind me, large numbers of fans have made their way to the hotel to greet their favorite athletes. The representatives of the nation's Olympic team will be staying here for 3 days.
Swimmer Zhang Yufei noted her love for Hong Kong dishes such as shrimp dumplings and barbecue pork buns. Table tennis legend Ma Long said he wished there will be more opportunities to interact with youngsters in the city and use his own experience to encourage local residents. David Chen Hongchan urged residents to chase after their passions no matter the cost, and thanked the Hong Kong community for its support. Swimmer Pan Zhanle, meanwhile, emphasized that it is an honor to compete for the nation. The athletes will meet with more members of the community in the coming days. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.